Ready for round two? How do you do? And if you ever knew that there is an actual formula to the process of achieving freedom. And yes, people need to do it on the individual level, but Kris Nelson and some others have cracked the code, if you will, in a sense. And we're not the type that loosely use the term freedom. Just unlike, politricians and, like all across the board, you've heard anyone talk about freedom, but who actually understands the requirements to actually obtain freedom, right? It's not just some magical buzzword that, you say it and all of a sudden it fucking happens type of shit, So, we're going to get into it more and more. And, subscribe to Kris's channel because he's going to be unpacking this, down the road in the future. So check it out. Yeah, it's going to be Kris and I pretty much for the majority of this little discussion. It's an open call-in session, so yeah, subscribe to his channel and feel free to pop in and watch the presentations and jump in for a little conversación if you want. Yeah, we have Fred from Libercast popping on for a little bit, and voila. And again, I left the presentation part out of it, although I overlaid his slides and all that throughout the chat and all that. And if you need some more of that good old freedom, I mixed a good old soundtrack to that, so just keeping that vibe up, Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, the strange liberty, no trust for the voice who explain history. The children of the wilderness, skill to explain mysteries. My mic reigns liberty, epitome of deepness, but never make epitome a bitch for the teachers. Forgotten by the hourglasses, bliss in my features. Kissed by the ethers, can never be trapped unless willingly, so skillfully. Whenever I rap spells cast upon the mass fell. Pitiful death from life, working hard, taking miserable breaths. Hieroglyphic MC, writing visual text. My flow's light, spit a miracle next. My spiritual flesh is open. Society's possessed by an omen, golden rod, known God, Uranus. I'm exploding. That's my approach when I invest. My emotion, nod, yes, I'm the chosen. God bless, I'm awoken. Heart is unspoken. Heartless young shoulders round the globe, gun holding. But you don't see the weight on the shoulders of a great, where the world is hung over. Driver of the planet in the ship slumped over. Aroma of the dead, take a whiff, lung choker so wet. The beast is so polluted, I speak it, I sure improve it. The streets devoted to it, sleep with no one knew it. Freedom was so exclusive, fleeting fluid, seemed that money could buy. Frequent trips in the summery sky, above it and fly. The days are forgotten, the struggle moves slow when they pay the love shopping. So yeah, what a conundrum. Reparations knowledge itself, and here's a lump sum, but strange where we come from. Take it or leave it, believe it, I'm dropping everything. Married no corporation, sat in this heavy rings. For life's freedom, said the melody's king. I'm abstract, couldn't tell me a thing. I breathe freedom. Freedom, freedom.
Freedom is a voice that you can never hold. Taking what is ours, you gotta let it go. So liberate the people, I know we're incredible. Let's sing it for the ones that you can't control.
Hey, there we go. Hey, what's up?
Yo. Great presentation. Yeah, I love, it's like you're implementing those spiritual mathematics and really, displaying them in a really cohesive, simplified manner for just even the non-initiate to understand these things. It's great, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hopping on into the chat. If there's anything you want to talk about, and spiritual mathematics, that's a good term. That was Kris Jansen's presentation from before.
Yeah, it's a good way. It's catchy too, and it just, I don't know, just that term in and of itself just makes you think, like, what is spiritual mathematics? And then you start calculating and formulating whatever, and then you got someone like Kris Nelson coming in like, hey, like, there is a formula to the law of freedom. Y'all should, pay attention, right? So it's a really cool synchronous sequence there, if you will. even though you've been doing this for a long time, just yeah.
Yeah, that was Mark formulated the equation and gave like
Right.
the full thing, I guess 2 years ago or something at Anarchy in the Occult Part 3, his last time at Anarchapulco.
Mm.
And yeah, that was good because I'm like, I focus more on the ways that it can be like verified and demonstrated, and that's really
Mm.
helpful to formalize it in like a more quantifiable, applying the quadrivium to it, and because quantities are important to measure things. Ma'at is about measurement too. That's one of the terms that it means. So that's what we're
Yeah,
doing
those
when
skills
we're
are important. Got to
yeah.
keep it measured, balanced, and
Well, that's how you know. How do you know you're doing harm? Well, you look at reality and you measure. Well, what is the measure of the behavior, and did it initiate harm? How much harm did it initiate? And then you know the severity. So we're measuring the harm because that's objective. It didn't. It's not just happening in our mind. It's not a subjective thing. It happened in reality. So it's objective. And then if it's objective, well, it can be measured.
yeah, and like that's a great example of folks in network. We talk about like, well, we have to align our subjective truths to objective truth, and like that's that right there. Like, is it really that hard sometimes? But yeah, like with the whole dynamics of what I like to call the clusterfuck of consciousness, or the Gordian knot, if you will, that the whole entanglement and all the governmental, you know, tentacles that have, just, wrapped around all fabrics of society in a sense. And normal people are just kind of caught up in the fray in a sense. And so, yeah, folks are either going along with it, sometimes questioning it, and or folks like us just like removing ourselves from like, hey, like we gotta formulate something better, like yeah, like law of freedom type of shit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's the point. Is trying to get to that different way, creating a different way, and well, if you're gonna try to create a different way, you know, permaculture and trying to be more self-sustainable. Well, that's personal freedoms, more liberation, more independence, correlated with freedom in that sense. But so when you're more independent, you're less codependent, so you're more free. But you're still living in a society that's enslaved because of those false claims of ownership from the governmental system and those who continue to support that system of authority and do things for a paycheck. So if they don't like what you're doing, well, they can make up a law and then take take what you have away from you because they can. That's the way it's worked in history, and it still
yeah, and they
happens
just
now.
condition people to police other people, right? And like vote for these, laws to be implemented to just, have less freedoms in general, or like, you can't do this because of arbitrary XYZ. Yeah, it's goes back to what you were talking about. And yeah, I liked how you broke that down with property rights, and you've also spoken about property theft as well. And yeah, like naming some of the transgressions of natural law, and just morality in general, if you will. um yeah, that's great. And yeah, especially tying it into the animal kingdom and how us as humans are treating our other brothers and sisters and whatnot, if you will, in that you know other type of species and stuff. And yeah, like property rights and stuff, and uh boundaries and territories and stuff. And what you were talking about had made me think about yeah, it's like, do animals know their territory? A lot of them seem to be, yeah, just doing their thing. They know where to go throughout the seasons and that kind of stuff. And but then you see dogs that just want to piss all over the place and mark their territory. Like, what kind of property are they trying to formulate over there? Sometimes, like, so yeah, that came to mind. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why they're very different. They're the same kind, like we're all the animal kind in the animal kingdom, but we're different in degree. And even Darwin stated that, we're the same in kind but different in degree. And so, like that example of like pissing everywhere to mark your territory can only be upheld if you're able to defend it. So they can, piss all over the place, but then if there's a stronger one that comes in, well, he can take it over because he's stronger. So they don't operate by moral principles. They don't have the capacity to operate by moral principles. They can engage in behavior that we can characterize as moral, but they don't have that ability to define it as such, or to strive for that as a higher form of living, a truer form of living. So they do operate by the might makes right perversion, which is what the the satanic ideology, that's egotism and moral relativism and social Darwinism, is just, well, whoever's the strongest, well, they get to decide what happens and who gets what, and that's what we've been living on under for thousands of years, is just that. And that disease of authority, and convincing people to listen to you, and then well, your might as right, well, your might has just grown bigger and bigger because you have a lot more people under you who will do what you say. So it's like your arms turn into 1,000 arms, and that's where your will becomes people are subservient from their will to your will. I see you, Fred. I'm coming. And yeah, so that's the whole thing about authority, is to make people take your will as their will, to subsume their own will. So then they become subservient to you, and then they give up their sovereignty. So then that's where you get to the king, because the king ends up being the one on top, and everyone has subsumed their will to them. And now what we just have now is just, instead of one king, well, it's a rotating king in different kingdoms of governments, and then you have then you have like the sub kings and whatever other grades of the administration, and everyone, the governors and the senators and the congressmen and all these people are deluded into thinking these are the lawmakers that can make laws, but they don't actually make laws, because laws can't be made. They're part of the universe, and no human can make a law. It's part of reality. What's up, Fred?
Can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Yeah, brother.
Hey, great presentation, man, as usual. I was there. The first one I've listened afterward. But this one, man, the explication or the nuances that I mentioned in the comment in the chat, that was great, man. Congratulations. I cannot wait to see the rest of it.
Thanks. Yeah.
I appreciate the graphics there, and we can go and read it again, by our own, and have our own understanding and things like that, and interpreting the information differently. And this is what I love about this work, is it's always moving, it's always growing, and I'm proud to stand aside of you people. I wish we were a lot more. The work is great. This is why it's called a great work, but it's a difficult, tiring work. And the thing is, I try to explain cause and effect to people, and it's very difficult to take this information and put it out for the people who aren't familiar with the information and all the backgrounds. And we're talking And the thing is, it's simple. The truth is simple. It's all logical, and this is what you demonstrated in this presentation. You know, it's a logical, common sense thing. You know, it's beautiful. It's it's marvelous. I like it very much. Because this is what we're striving for. We're striving for the betterment of the people. We are all have our different approach to it. We're not all the same, and I think we're completing ourselves and joining different people and trying to get them into this information, because this is crucial information. You know, I I cannot impress this information too much. And I keep trying to show the basics and things like that, and it's very difficult to get to people, even to accept the proposition, this proposition of laws and principles, because of moral relativism and solipsism and neuroticism and things like that make it very difficult.
Yeah, well, that's why, that's in the previous one and this one, part one and part two. If you talk to people about that, well, this material could help, because then you can relate it to in depth and draw a high degree of parallels between the different properties of the law of gravity and the law of freedom, and then you can explain it to someone. Well, you recognize gravity. Okay, well, what is gravity? Well, we know you can start from one of the what I mentioned in part one. Well, it's a fact, and then you draw a principle. The apple falls, there's a fact. Something falls, it's a fact. And then the principle is, well, you throw things up and they come down, so what goes up must come down. And then from there, they went further and they derived a law. Well, you can do that to anything. And the law of freedom is, well, someone got hurt. What is that hurt? What is the harm? Defining things. And so then there's facts of, well, the behavior happened, it's a fact. And did it initiate harm? Yes, according to this definition. And so that's a property theft. And then, well, what's the principle behind it? Well, when you initiate harm and immorality, well, you're making a false claim of ownership. And that false claim of ownership means you're claiming to own something that's not yours. And ultimately, when you do that to someone's property, it's like you're saying that you own them, because they're not allowed to use their property the way they want to, and you're deciding how you use their property. So you're making a claim of ownership upon them as a derivative, and that's enslavement. So this is what it's about: is your harm initiation. If you keep repeating that, then you get a society that's enslaved. So there's like direct corollaries. If people can understand gravity in more detail, and they can understand and juxtapose it to the law of freedom, and then really understand that, oh yeah, it operates just like the law of gravity, which is a law of nature, and this one is another law. It's a representation of that functionality and reality that we didn't create, and you just got to understand how that functions and what those properties of it are, like mass and distance, and it gives you that effect. Well, here it's the behavior, and whether it's moral or immoral, and it gives you the effect of the slavery or the freedom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I like Brandon Spencer's conference and the Funnel 4 conference. Not as much as yours, maybe, but nah, no comparison. It's just there's no competition. Y'all are just great, regardless. But to title a video titled, "The Law of Slavery," but pretty much, what you talked about in the first 20 minutes or whatever with those slides, it's kind of like the same thing. It's just the whole cause and effect of people's alignment to either being immoral or moral to whatever degrees, right? And all this stuff. And yeah, like how I like the whole thing you brought up with gravity, because it's alluding to your first part of how we need numbers. We need that aggregate mass to make this actually fucking happen and manifest in the physical domain and all these things. So yeah, like how can we gravitate people's thoughts, emotions, and actions towards freedom? And obviously, it starts with your state of mind. And Bob Marley said, long ago, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And so people need to take it upon themselves to do that first and foremost, to find that inner freedom, so that can be expressed more in the outer domain type of thing. So yeah, just kind of taking it to the hermeticum a little bit there, but yeah. And uh, what you said about things behind the scenes and kind of tying that into the process of the trivium, I think that kind of ties into what I'm saying a little bit, because yeah, people need to do their work, their shadow work, their inner work, and all these things to really recalibrate their mind to being that sovereign individual, so they operate from there in reality, in the real world type of thing. And uh they're going to be that beacon of lights, living and walking, breathing, speaking those sentiments, on a daily basis for others to see and be inspired by, hopefully, right? Kind of like that whole funnel for subtitle of the conference of inspiring care to action, right? So yeah, that's all I got to say. Fred, what's good, man? Yeah. Or
Yeah,
whoever.
I agree, man. Care is the one big thing, the general principle. Um, I mean, all this work comes from care. So if you don't have that, it's you don't even think about it, when you don't have it, and caring about others and empathy and things like that. That makes it that make this principle a generative principle and not a destructive principle. Because what I observed during your presentation, Kris, is your you were explaining in inversions in your presentation without mentioning it, and it's incredible, man. This I'm pounding this information, a lot, and it's you have, and I'll repeat it, man. You need to French this shit up, man. We need it for the Quebec and France. I know what's gonna be your response, man, but I mean, we need this presentation out, and yeah, the inversion aspect, um, the consequences and the cause and effect, and in changing the paradigm from the effect from to the cause. And this is what this presentation is talking about. This is what I understood of it. It's all about causality. It's all about cause and effect. And yeah, it just showed me, that I wasn't wrong about it. It's very well explained and very concise. And I couldn't do this job, like that, because you're because of my limitation in language. But this is incredible, man. I need to go, man, and I want to congratulate you again. And I'm gonna be there for the rest of it. I'm gonna rewatch it for sure. Although which why I have to get back to your old work, man. Um, there's so much stuff out. It's incredible. I barely have the time to take on the Libercast and things like that because of the family. So yeah, congratulations, man. I'm happy to seeing you and talk to you, man. So take care.
Thanks a lot, Fred. Thanks for the kind words, and have a good night. Take
You
care of
too.
your family.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what like the inversion. Then when the inversion that I can think of is like the satanic inversion to invert
Right.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know what he was specifically talking about. Trying to think, but
Could have been just along the lines of what I was saying of, the law of freedom and the law of slavery. They kind of work simultaneously. It's just cause and effect in what people are conditioned to and what they're operating on in that mass aggregate scale, right? Scales, right? In reference to Mayat, I got that
yeah,
lovely, yeah. And you said something in the presentation, and I wrote this down in regards to these algorithms, especially today. It's so insidious, right? It's like the biggest brother out there and all this stuff, surveying all our, you know, stuff and listening in on our smartphones. Where's my shit at? No, but it just seems like it's circumventing and manipulating the law of attraction, right? You see this being planned out. Like we're talking about something, and then all of a sudden you do a Google search, and the first result is popped up of what we were just talking about, whatever the fuck, right? I'm sure they're not going to pop up stuff that we're talking about in this live stream, right? But you know what I mean with that. So it's just, yeah, it's sad, and people are kind of just caught up in the whirlwind of this digital deluge of diasma or dilemma, whatever, the delusion, and they're not understanding the powerful law of attraction that they have within themselves, that they can wield uh, the proper uh, magnitude or magnetics to attract what they want into their life if they really focus from that heart core center, I guess, to a degree, right? We're all caught up in the collective consciousness, and people can only be the cause to their effects to, certain degrees. But at the same time, like, just being empowered by that to whatever, to a higher degree is a place to be, I think.
yeah. Well, the law of attraction has to do with our time and attention and what we care enough to put our time and attention on. And if we if we ignore the immorality and the evil, well, and we focus on sports and entertainment and whatever else, then, well, when people focus on paying for all that stuff, well, they're going to get more of that stuff because that's where the money flows and the attention goes and the money goes there because they're paying for it. So then, well, that stuff's going to keep 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 coming into reality. It's like if someone creates a new product and no one buys it, well, the product's going to go bye-bye because there's no customers. So people's time and attention, what they're paying for in their spiritual currency, let alone the physical currency, well, that's what they're going to promote more of in their life. So they can pay for cable and watch sports or watch all the stupid reality TV stuff or sitcoms. And what are they going to get as a return on that? Well, they're not going to get much of a return in their life. What are they creating? How is that going to lead to behaviors in their life that they're enacting or to influence others in behaviors? Nothing's going to change. So your time and attention is being wasted to just get more of the same. There's not going to be an improvement when you just waste it away. So we gotta, yeah, like you're saying, the law of attraction. If people understood it, then we'd be able to more effectively change the reality we live in, because people would be working towards creating that difference rather than letting things be as they are and letting other people drive the mechanics and the levers behind the big machine of society. And the algorithms are part of that. The attention that people pay, the attention economy. Data is the new oil. It's all big data, and what you do with the data. That's why people, the companies pay for your data on like credit cards and whatnot to know what you're purchasing, so that it can drive feedback on like what's being bought in certain areas by who and what frequency. Is it the same people buying it, different people? And with the algorithms now and the cookies, you go on one site and you're looking for something, and then on YouTube you're going to end up getting a video for the thing that you were looking at the day before, and it's like giving you suggestions about whatever you were looking at as a product or service. So the data and the interconnectivity of the data is how they can target us to tailor their advertising and hopefully get a hook, to hook us into buying something, as opposed to random advertising that you're not even interested in. But if they're going to advertise something that you were looking at the day before, then they already know that, well, you're already interested in that. So you have more of a chance of being a potential customer to that targeted advertising.
Yeah, and a lot of those cookies ain't sweet, right? But I wanted to ask you a question because going back just real quick, because I appreciate what you just said right there. Yeah, like it makes a ton of sense of how we're being surveyed and how things are being displayed to us, from what's being listened in, or all this data collection and all this stuff. And we're not getting money from, putting out our data on Facebook, but other people are. So what the hell? Like, what a ripoff and all this shit. Anyway, that's a quick aside. Wanted to ask you, at the tail end of your presentation, speaking about animals and stuff, and what are your kind of ideas and solutions for people that are still consuming meat to whatever degree and all that stuff, but they're doing it consciously, and folks kind of understand natural law, and there are people that are doing like homesteading, and they're trying to live more symbiotically with animals and have like a proper farm. And speaking with some of these people, it seems like some of these animals they're almost like pampered. Like they got a good life. They got man-made shelters built for them specifically and all this stuff, and they're not abused. They're loved on a daily basis. They can get medical treatment if needed and all this stuff. And it's not like they're being harvested or used and abused for labor or food stuff. So it seems. But I'm not trying to paint a candy-coated picture of some of these homesteaders, but what's your thoughts on that in regards to this whole law of freedom and trying to live symbiotically with our animals and trying to live in a free society for all, animals and humans, I guess. I know it's a tricky one, but
Well, my approach in understanding things is, so this is a human world we created. We're on one planet, all of us, but the human world was created by humans. And that's how I view it as like a foundation. Is the human world is created by humans, and it's created for humans. And the animals did not create this world that we live in. We created it. So they have their own way of living, and they should be left alone. That's my view of, there's the whole principle of to be left alone as long as you're not initiating harm to another. That's what morality essentially comes down to. Because then if you are initiating harm, then someone has the right, or a group of people, to bring restoration, retribution, restitution, to rebalance the scales of justice for the injustice, and to restore justice and to restore true freedom. So the animals, for me, is you leave them alone, and that's it. It's not to create a bunch of animal sanctuaries and take care of them all. No. It's like, if you want to do that, okay, and you're rich, all right, like, go ahead, have fun. But that's not my view. My view is just leave them the fuck alone. And that's it. Just like you want to be left alone and interact with someone until they tell you that they don't want to interact with you, well, you leave them alone. And for me, it's that simple. You know, the pets as animal companions, a better name, is a tricky thing. But I don't want animal companions. I took in a cat because it was abandoned by someone else, so it was around my house and like starving. So we took in a cat, and now we have a cat. I have a cat again. But so that was when we moved here, and I just want, they have their world that they create with their own behaviors, and we have our world that we create, and we shouldn't be bringing them into our world unless there's a good reason.
Especially in a world of slavery. What the hell, man?
Yeah, well, that's part of the false claim of ownership. People think
it's not that funny, but yeah.
People think they own the lives of others, and they don't see them as other persons, like I mentioned in the presentation. Well, different animals, you look at dogs, cats, cows, they have different personalities. They're not the same personality. Anyone who's had multiple cats or dogs, they can speak to that truth. Well, a personality is a persona, is an identity, and a persona is a person. So they're not human persons, but they're non-human persons. They have personalities, and we should just leave them be, and you can interact with them in the shared world we have, but to bring them into our world, that's not the world that they belong in. They belong in their world that they create for themselves. And people think that they can own animals and just breed them to sell them, and then other people buy them because, oh, it's cute, and daddy, mommy, I want a dog, or I want a cat, or I want a hamster, or I want a rabbit, and all this shit. And it's just this mindset that hasn't been corrected, that's just perpetuated by the conditioning. The condition that you're raised in conditions you so that you can perpetuate that condition. And until you engage in that examined life, that self-reflection, that introspection, to re-examine all your behaviors and the motivations behind them, and whether it's a right or a wrong thing to do, well, then you just keep doing it. And that's a large problem that we have now. So for the animals, it's, re-examine the whole property and the ownership, and you shouldn't be deciding for them to like take them and bring them in your home. Like, yeah, they're gonna love it, because guess what? Nature is a fucking bitch. The harsh world out there, it's hard. It's very hard. See, because out there, they gotta find food. So whether they're carnivorous or herbivore, they still gotta find the food. And it's hard to find food. But we are greater at our manipulation, our hands, our mind, heart, and hands, and what we can create, the technology, our artifices of our hands. We can create so much, and we can manipulate things at a higher degree. So that's why we have agriculture, and we can be much more efficient in our way of how we survive, and they're much more limited at it. So it's a lot harsher for them. So if we bring them into our world, and as a companion, even for that, well, yeah, they're gonna like it, because like, oh fuck, thanks, I don't have the harsh nature to contend with, and fending off those who think, the animals who just they want to take, because it's a harsh survival. So even in humans, in that mindset of scarcity, where you end up in that lower base consciousness of survival, that low base consciousness that or you end up just wanting to take from others because you want to have, so that you can survive, or you can be more, your life can be more beneficial, more comfortable. And so when you're providing that to a non-human animal, well, of course they're going to prefer that to the harshness of surviving in without it, because, well, that's more, it's harder to do. It's much greater hardship. It's uncomfortable. There's all the weathers and the temperature to deal with, especially in northern climates. So, the warmth and providing the food for them. So, in terms of an animal companionship, so yes, in that way they're very pampered, and it's an easy life for them. But that's not their world.
Yeah,
And
true. And I'm
we
sure.
have compassion. So, the cat, I took it in because, well, I had compassion. So
Yeah, yeah.
I took it in, and I was like, fuck, I don't want to, but, I can do something. I'm not going to take in 50 cats, but I could take in one and, help that one life, even though it's a fucking carnivore, and I'd prefer them not to be. But,
Right, yeah, and that kind of was a dilemma for me because being a vegan and having a cat and having to buy meat products for the cat and all this stuff. I ain't someone to trying to convert a carnivore into a vegan or whatever the hell. But you brought up a really good point, and yeah, it's like the difference between being sovereign or being domesticated. It seems, right? Whether it be the animal kingdom
there you
or
go.
human beings, right? Because the government, like, hey, like, come over here. We can pay. Get in the comfort zone. Be in the the status area where all your needs are gonna be met. You can get in whatever countries, degrees of Medicare and all this stuff. And so, yeah, you're being initiated into this, domestication type of stuff. And yeah, I have noticed quite a difference being out here in Europe for 15 years as opposed to being in America. It's not that extreme, but, because we're all first world countries, right? But you can see the difference and experience it, especially if you're living here, right? And it's like you're seeing the ceiling is pretty low above your head, it seems, in your out here in Europe, as far as like what you can do, the type of money you can make, and all this stuff. Yeah, you can make more money by breaking your back, with an extra job. But holy shit, there's man-made laws that are gonna stop you from working uh, umpteen hours extra. You can't do that. No, you can't, be that independent. No.
Yeah, control.
It's like no one wants to work that much anyways to, for these slave wage labor jobs and all this stuff. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, do we not have the free will rights to do these things regardless? And yeah, I love uh that slide you had of like the free wills and all that stuff. Like, yeah, like, and keeping it plural because there are multiple levels to our free will. I think did you want to go into that a little bit, or whatever's
Sure.
clever?
I have more on that, like more stuff about freedom is for free wills, related to karma, and that'll be a while from now. I still have a lot of slides to rework for that, but I should have part 3 done next week, and that one will be short, just on like definitions and going a little bit deeper on true freedom. Well, for freedom is for free wills. Like I mentioned briefly, non-human animals, they have free will. They just don't have the same degree of free will that we do. Again, the difference, same in kind, different in degree. We have a lot more degrees, right? A degree, like a 90 degree or 120 degree. Well, we have more degrees of freedom. We have a lot more potential and possibility with our free will for the things we can enact because of our bodies as well that facilitate that, in our brains So the dexterity of our fingers with the things we can create. Well, even if the other, imagine putting yourself in a dog's body. Uh, good luck writing with a pencil or using a hammer. Opposable thumbs are very useful. So the dexterity of our fingers allows us a great degree of free will. So right there in the whole construct of who we are, the body is very important for our free will as well. And so they have free wills, and freedom is for free wills. If something does not have a free will, it doesn't have the ability to direct its body and move and do things. So when you can do that, well, you have freedom because you have a free will. And like I said, they can't define the words, they can't define the concepts, but they rebel against a restriction against their freedom. So we can characterize their condition as freedom. They just know it as something that's not preferential or not desirable to them, and they prefer what we recognize as a free state. So for example, like wild stallions just roaming the plains. I don't know if there's still some, but like decades ago or in the past, there's horses roaming around going free, and then people kidnap them, and then they break their will, and then they turn them into domesticated horses that do work for them. And they break their will because it's learned helplessness, which I went into a bit in my Seed 5 presentation from nearly 2 years ago there. So learned helplessness is when you're conditioned by repetition into accepting the condition you're in, because you learn that falsely, you get conditioned into learning that there's nothing you can do about it. And that's unfortunately the condition that a lot of people view themselves in, even without thinking about it. They learn this, learn natural law. Oh, what's the point? Learn this, learn that, care for truth. Oh, there's no point, there's nothing I can do. And even people who do, like, start the awakening with their eyes a little bit open, and then they get black pilled, like, oh, it's hopeless, there's nothing I can do. Well, they learn to be helpless. And that's the training, like a young elephant, tying them to a peg where they can't move it. And then you keep doing that until they're super huge. Well, they're still going to be conditioned into thinking they're stuck to that peg, but they could yank it out of the ground because they're a lot bigger now, but they learned, and they kept that conditioning of being helpless. And so the animals have free will, and in our dominator predator mindset, well, we try to break their free will. And as I mentioned earlier, we, as the kings and everything, it's to subsume, make the free will of others, subsume their free will, and adopt your will as their will. And that's the whole, Carlos Castaneda, the predators gave us their mindset. And so they turned us into mini-me Satanists. That's the whole game right there.
Yeah, the dominators.
Yeah.
Divide and conquerors and all that stuff. Yeah, geez. Yeah, great points, Kris. Yeah. And what you were talking about, it's such a reflection of, how the humankind has been conditioned. Let's take a family of horses, for example, right? As you said, you steal one horse or two. Let's steal two, male, female, and let's make some babies, and just have them raised in closed space, and that's all they know. And all they know is being ridden on by humans and all this stuff. And so picture that in regards to babies being born into the governmental system, where we're just growing up and, like, society's kind of riding our backs. Got to get a job, got to vote, got to, pay taxes and all this shit, right? So yeah, it's an interesting contrast with what you're talking about right there.
Well, that is what it is we are cogs in the machine. That's what the outcome-based education is to, well, find a place in society that has a need so that you can keep it going. And then the parasites, well, they just manipulate the system and they can keep being parasites because they're not themselves doing any of the labor to produce anything. They might own companies where people are actually doing things, but they themselves, I'm not talking about like if you own a business that makes you a parasite. I'm talking about the people at the top who, you know, they want to keep their position of just manipulating, keeping people to be workers so that they can produce the things that they want to have without them having to do anything to produce it. So, you know,
Nor face the repercussions of karmic debt and shit like that, right?
yeah. So that's why they have the manipulation of money. So, you know, they devalue the currency so we get less, and they give kickbacks and bailouts to those higher echelons, and then they can buy up real resources in the world. And
Whoa, wait, you're saying we have to work more to earn less? What the hell is this stress? Like,
yeah, it's a big scam.
yeah, man.
If the monetary system could be more just, even though it would be fiat, you know, by decree, fiat lux, let there be light, well, let there be money. They just create it, but it could be not inflationary. They wouldn't have to. There's a different way of doing it, especially with like the technology we have in the blockchain. It could be a more viable economic system that wouldn't be perverted to such a degree where generation by generation the value of your currency goes down because they keep perverting it for their own gains, because they're the parasite class. Well, that's what politicians are. As much as anyone wants to think that they're doing work, all they're doing is managing and controlling things and creating laws to prevent you from doing things they don't want you to do, or to make you do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah,
And they reap the benefits, like $100, $200, $300,000 salaries, to not actually produce anything, but to be rulers and masters over others. And people are convinced that those are necessary or good, or that they're serving them. It's such a colossal mindfuck. It's very ingenious. It's a big joke. It's all a big fucking
yeah,
joke.
fuck yeah. And yeah, a play on words to emphasize that joke is, politic. Politics. Politic. Poly, multiple, faceted, and a tick is a blood-sucking parasite. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And it's a sick joke, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're at like 2 hours.
Yeah,
That's like a
I don't want to take up any
good
more of your
place to
time. If
end it.
you want to wrap it up, you're
Yeah,
good to go
we got
whenever you
less
want, but
people, less convo, so there's like less, I guess, less momentum that we gotta slow down from. So it was a good rhythm, and we had
fuck
Fred
yeah.
in for a bit, and some good conversation, talking
Yeah.
about tangent and related stuff.
Oh yeah, I was trying to see if Brandon Spencer was up to check in and pop in or whatever, but yeah, might be
No, I guess
busy.
he was busy tonight. Had other plans. I don't know. Went to bed early. I don't know.
That's so
But
good. But
yeah, he didn't
he
show up.
always
Too
loves your
bad.
work, you know that shit.
Yeah, but yeah, people got lives. They got stuff going on, so
Fuck
not
yeah, that's
everyone can
part of the
make
great
it to
work.
everything.
Sometimes those things, coincide, and it's not about the collide, but yeah, just keep on keeping on, y'all. Keep it strong and hold on to the sovereignty within yourself and expound that out in the here and now, I suppose. The time is always now. According to my watch, oh wait, it's non-linear. It's only 4 o'clock in the morning over here in France. Holy shit!
Only, yeah.
Don't mind me, man. Forget about it.
Yeah, I thought of making like could do it on like the weekend in the afternoon, and then it'd be maybe more open to people. But those, as you've seen on Europa Natural Law, they can be quite hectic for me with the kids
Oh
coming
yeah,
in.
sure, yeah.
So
That was
it's
awesome,
like
man.
I thought of it, and I could try it once and schedule one for maybe a time where people are more available and see how it goes. But yeah, at night everyone's sleeping, so it's more calm here, and yeah,
Yeah,
more
whatever.
able to control I guess the sanctity of the stream, and with less disturbances.
Exact. Yeah, yeah. Do your thing, brother.
So if you want to leave, mention your Awaken Your Mind or whatever, people to reach you.
Yeah. Awaken YA Mind. I do a lot of stuff. Check it out sometime. It's not as professional and concise and sometimes serious as your channel, and proper information that's just like that's that. See, what I do is kind of like edutainment, if you will. Like I throw in some entertaining elements into the educational aspects of things. And but I learn from the likes of yourself that it's just like it's solid as a fucking rock as far as like the information that is available that you've presented and written down and made a gazillion slides about. And so yeah, just eternal respects, brother. Yeah.
Thank you. And next week, I could probably have one next week. Like I said, it's on definitions. It'll be like maybe around 20 slides instead of 26 or 20. I think it was 27 this time. And so it'll be around an hour, maybe less. So I should be able to do one for next Wednesday. And after that, probably a few weeks later, a month later or something, because I got to rework all the infographics. They're not as well finished, and yeah, maybe it'll be a few months. I don't know. I still got to do a lot more work to finish up I guess it'll be part 4 and part 5 and 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. I don't know. There's a lot of parts, and so more to come. But definitely part 3 next week, and then after that, we'll see. I plan. I'm still gonna do one every week, but not on the law of freedom, because that one needs work. But I figure after next week, part 3, I'm going to do the morality presentation that was 8 hours long, and just cover those. I'll do them live, like Will Keller does his live presentations. I'm just gonna do that live. So I'll do an hour of however many slides I talk about, and then the next week I'll do another hour, and then so those are already done, and I can present that in a more smaller format, since people have an aversion to watch an 8-hour video. So especially since I'm not Mark Passio, so there's less people dedicated to like wanting to go through it, and yeah, so more people will have the opportunity to be exposed to the information when I make it into a smaller format, and yeah, hopefully more people will get exposed to the information and learn something from it. So that's my plans coming up.
Yeah, that's great, brother. And yeah, I plan to share your information a little bit more that I have in years past, which I have implemented, even just like little slides and stuff from yours, and like little music mixes sometimes. It's fucking awesome. And I try to pay homage to that. But yeah, there's what's up with YouTube? Do we need to do short version videos all the time?
I'm
I don't
not
think
much of
so.
a fan of those.
No.
Like,
But
look at what I'm explaining. What am I gonna say
exactly.
in a minute? I don't know. I could give
Exactly.
like a short thing, and then someone might be, oh, what's that about? I might be into, like, I can see it for that aspect, but that's not what I'm into. I'm into teaching, so I'm not gonna. I can't teach in a minute. I'm sorry,
Yeah, there's
but
a greater
that's
context in this and that, and we don't want to feed into the Dunning-Kruger effect and whatever the hell, right? So,
well, that's
yeah.
destroying
Shit!
the generation alpha or whatever, Z and alpha, their attention spans. It's like there's even like some studies about
Sure.
how it's like destroying their attention span and they can't focus on things properly anymore because it's all TikTok. That's the TikTok fuck things over even more. And that's why YouTube even has shorts, and that's why shorts started popping up everywhere because
Yeah. Someone had to compete with TikTok as well, or
yeah, I don't know
Instagram, but
what the next thing they went from. Like, I guess YouTube was the first big one. You know, there was like MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and then there was YouTube, and then from YouTube, I don't know, Instagram. I don't even know really what that is about. It's pictures or something. And then and then they go TikTok, and what's next? 30-second limit videos. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, there's like Snapchat and stuff for the youth. But anyways, not to go off on that tangent, man. I hope you upload like that solid 8-hour presentation you're talking about, but also, yeah, possibly because I've been wrestling with these thoughts as well. Like with my presentation, I did an extended version of the funnel conference. You know, it's going to be 3 hours. Do I release the whole 3-hour thing, or do I do like part 1, part 2, part 3, or you know what I mean? So, or I could do it all. Fuck it, why not? Like, we got options apparently. So, c'est la vie, mon ami, and
Yeah,
that's
you can break it
all I
up
got
and
for
then
set.
break it up, and then people. There's probably more people are gonna want to watch it. I don't know. I guess definitely 8 hours. It's it's demanding on people, so but it's too daunting. You know, they don't
That's
do what I
demanding
do.
on your computer, man. How many gigabytes is that, by the way?
Yeah, that's like 6 or 7. But people don't want to download. Like I usually
What? Only?
like download it and then I have it in VLC, and then if I close it in VLC and the next time I reopen it, it starts off where I left off. So then I don't lose track of it. But if you go on YouTube, I think they started adding that now. But before, it didn't keep track of anything. And Odyssey does. That's why I like Odyssey, because you can like close your browser, come back the next day, and Odyssey picks up where you left off, like VLC does. But on YouTube, if you like close the video and then you come back, well, you're starting back from the beginning, so then you don't know where you were. So that's why long videos are, I guess, less appealing to people, because they want like 20, 30-minute segments that they can handle watching in a night. And then they can go on to the next part, I guess. But
Can they handle it as if they're not binge watching, Netflix and whatever the hell sometimes? Like,
yeah, but that's entertainment.
that's the
And
easy, digestible, fall asleep to miasma media crap, right? Yeah.
yeah, entertainment's different than
Not that
learning.
real shit.
Not much into learning.
Are you on Odyssey? Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
People like entertainment, but learning is
Oh, I
takes more
am following you
concentration
on here.
and
Okay.
focus. All right. Well, thanks, Derek, for coming around, and maybe
Yep.
see you next week.
Hell
and,
yeah.
Have another chat, and
Sure.
maybe Brandon can grace us with his presence again. And
Yes. Hopefully, yeah.
we'll see who joins, and it'll be some good times. And
Yeah.
you take care, and might see you on Sunday for ENL.
Awesome. Yeah. Right on. Thank you so much, Kris. Take care, brother. And
Have a good night.
Yeah, talk to you soon, regardless.
Peace.
Thank you.
But the wisest of mortals have experienced within themselves the simple fact that universal law is the greatest good, the greatest beauty, the greatest love, the greatest wisdom that man can know.